to Freaks and Creeks, a Dawson's Creek podcast, the show where four millennials who missed the boat 25 years ago take the dive for the first time. Join us as we experience the series with a fresh perspective week to week and see if our adolescent experiences match up with Dawson and the gang. My name is Cody.
I'm Stella.
I'm Mallory.
And I am James, and this week we are talking about Season 1, Episode 6, Baby. This episode aired on February 24th, 1998. And in this episode, Capeside is abuzz with rumors of a teacher's indiscretion. Rumors that could prove fateful for Pacey and Tamara. Pacey then takes it upon himself to go before a school board hearing to admit to personally fabricating the rumors to clear Tamara. Meanwhile, Joey and Jen get a life lesson when Bessie is aided by an unlikely source, Graham's Ryan, when she goes into labor and gives birth to her baby in Dawson's living room, with Dawson videotaping the whole thing. This was written by Kevin Williamson and John Harmon Feldman, and it was directed by Steve Miner. And what an episode it was. I think I have like 35 audio clips, so we're not going to hear all of them today, but this was just full of all sorts of fun stuff. What did you guys think about your watch?
I really liked this episode. Thought it was really solid. Obviously, there was like a lot of scenes, and they all felt very quick. But I kind of liked it. It felt like a good pacing, like just moved the story along. There was a lot happening, and yeah, I felt good about it.
Yeah, I think this is the most scenes we've had in an episode so far.
Yeah.
It was like 35 scenes. Yeah, it's wild. And you're right. It felt like some of the scenes were just like, okay, here's 3 seconds of something happening, and then we're going to cut away. So it felt punchy in a way that I don't think other episodes have felt to me. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Got some good vampire world building. I'm excited to share this with you. I've got some pretty compelling evidence to present, and I think everybody will be convinced at this point. There's no denying it after what you're about to hear in a few short minutes.
I'm just really looking forward to hearing what that is, because the Lord's Prayer, I mean, that sticks out to me as clear evidence that they were putting maybe like a shield of God's love around the house to keep the vampires away. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's talk about this really quick.
Quick. I want to go on for hours.
I was so disappointed when we got to that scene and Graham's has them do the Lord's Prayer as Bessie is giving birth. I was just jaw on the floor, confused that after everything we've had with like Jen and her stance on religion and her, even what we see in this episode, to then have that, it just felt like so heavy-handed and just out of place.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoyed this episode, except for I could have done without Graham's pushing the religion on everyone.
Did y'all not know that this is a focus on the family Christian program?
That's what I'm starting to see here, I think.
It kind of also seemed like Dawson took a little bit of a back seat in this episode. He offered some advice to, lots of good advice, but he was kind of in the background as far as like plot lines went.
Yeah, you know what I've been thinking about, because for me, this is probably my favorite episode so far this season.
Really?
And Mal, I mean, like, it didn't even click with me yet that it's probably because Dawson is in it the least.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And yeah, another thing I noticed before it's kind of about the first scene, but I want to talk about it before we get into the first scene, is that I went back and looked at the beginning of each episode, the last up to this episode 6. Every single episode has started with Joey and Dawson watching something in his bedroom.
Yeah.
So I kind of wonder if that's going to continue, or that's kind
feels
of
like it.
The end of like, we'll get into the first scene. If what happened in the first scene is like the end of like them watching something together. And
Yeah, I think it's like they use that as like a really good, it establishes all the plot points that they're going to hit in that episode, but it's like a really good way to introduce just like the show. It's like every cold open is going to be in the room, and it's going to be them like almost very, there's no really, like, it's all on the nose. Like, we're going to talk exactly what this episode's going to be about.
And interesting, when Mal kind of mentioned this to me, I thought about it, and every movie that they have watched in this cold open generally has some kind of importance to the plot, like you're saying. Like, it's not just what they're talking about or the way that they're setting up the scene, but the movie itself will be referential to the plot of the episode. Did anybody catch what movie they were watching in the first scene here?
That's why I wonder if you can't really tell what they were watching. All you see is the end. So I kind of wonder if that signifies something, because in the scene it's like it's kind of like which one is he going to pick? Is it the end of like Joey and his friendship where they get to like have these movie nights together, or
Interesting.
I like that.
We'll have to track that moving forward, but so far we're hitting 6 for 6 with episodes starting with a movie. So that's cool. I like that. That's fun.
Yeah, taking a step back also from, I mean, we've talked at length about how problematic the Tamara Pacey storyline is, so I don't really want to get into that any further. But taking a step back and looking at all of the beats that these characters are hitting, I felt extremely satisfied by this episode on where things ended up with people, how relationships were built and then torn apart, and like without the specifics of what those relationships are, I felt very satisfied from a character narrative arc.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah. It's true. There was quite a bit of development here. Does anybody have any thoughts before we actually jump in? Any more thoughts, I should say, before we jump in? I feel like it's good time to transition into the scene by scene.
Let's dive in.
Sweet.
Well, the teaser for Baby has Jen and Joey over at Dawson's for movie night. As the first film finishes, Joey and Jen express the awkwardness of it all. Joey isn't vibing with Dawson and Jen doesn't like encroaching on Dawson and Joey's ongoing movie night tradition. Jen drops some exposition tidbits and that her and Dawson have been slowing things down in their relationship. And Joey lets us know that Bessie's baby is due within the week. To settle the uncomfortable situation, both girls bail on movie night, leaving Dawson on his own.
I just thought it was funny, like, see Joey and Dawson on the bed,
Yes.
and then like, okay, like this is normal, and then all of a sudden you just see Jen just like awkwardly on the side.
on the chair.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's always like Joey and Dawson on the bed, but like if Jen's like the quote unquote girlfriend, like why isn't she on the bed? I don't know. It was just funny, made me laugh.
I kind of wonder if the next episode is going to be Jen on the bed with Dawson and them watching a movie.
Yeah.
Not only is Jen not on the bed and sitting in a chair, it also looks like the most uncomfortable chair I've ever seen. This episode specifically has 2 very uncomfortable chairs meant for Jen and then another for Bessie later. So thematically, we're looking at uncomfy chairs. Weird.
Yeah.
When that reveal happened and we pan over to Jen, I laughed so hard. I was just not expecting that in the least, and it felt so
romantic.
So romantic. I mean, God, wouldn't you love to be the third wheel with your significant other and their weird platonic best friend who's also romantically interested in your significant other? Doesn't that sound like a fun time?
Yeah, I want to know why. Like, was Dawson like wanting to just all of them to be closer together? Like, why not just do something separately with Jen?
Right.
Like, have a movie night with her.
He wants to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, remember in, I think it was episode 2 or whatever, when they were going to do the Travolta movie night thing, and it was going to be Jen and Joey and Dawson. So he's been pushing for this for quite some time. At this point, it's been like months in Cape Side, and he's finally got it to work out, and it goes pretty spectacularly bad, I would say, for him.
This show continues the sin over and over again of characters are clearly not communicating with one another until like an event is happening. So like, why wasn't any of this discussed before they even got to the house? It's not like they would keep this from each other. Like there's already friction with all these relationships. It's like they were all silent for an entire day, went into this room, watched a movie with no one talking, and then went, wait a minute, this is weird.
Yeah, also, like, Jen and Joey kind of bonded last episode, so it's like, what? Didn't they just become closer?
Show just forgets. I feel like this show just forgets the things that it establishes in previous episodes and is like, well, if we forgot, nobody else is going to remember anyway, so fuck it. Let's just go forward.
Yeah, they had that going for them, though, with episodic TV back then. You know, like they're kind of banking that this will probably be the first episode of the show that someone's going to see, you know. Just like our listeners, this might be your first episode, too. Hi, listeners. Rate and review and subscribe. And Also, I think it's really important to note in this that Kevin Williamson once again is just squeezing himself in, and he puts a Scream poster up.
Oh yeah.
I hadn't ever noticed that before this episode. Has that poster always been above his bed? I know there's the I Know What You Did Last Summer poster in his room, but I never saw the Scream poster right above his bed anyway.
Yeah. Scream is new.
Yeah, cool.
Well, after the intro, we head out to Bessie, Bodie, Joey house, and Bessie is chowing down on a big green popsicle while complaining about the side effects of her pregnancy. Bodie assures her it'll all be over soon as the due date is on the horizon. Bessie and Joey trade some sass, and Bodie drops a big old bomb that he's going to interview at a fancy French restaurant later that day.
This was so confusing to me, that part, because I could have sworn that they owned the ice house.
Yeah.
They like the way that they were in those previous scenes. It's like they ran the place. So is he getting a second job, or do they both just work there and like manage it at the ice house, and he's getting like a new job?
Yeah, I also
Very
had
confusing.
similar questions. I
Yeah.
was like, why is he interviewing? I mean, maybe a second job because they need more money, or maybe
Right.
it pays better, but
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I kind of always got the impression that they just worked there, that they didn't own the place, but that maybe like one of them is the floor manager and one is like the head chef, but like they just work there.
It's confusing because there's no one else like working there in those scenes, you know?
Yeah, that's why I assumed that they owned
Yeah.
it. I was so confused,
Funny.
and Bodie's going for a different gig. There you go.
I have a quick note on the intro credits. So I actually watched this episode on Hulu for one of my rewatches, just because it finally has been taken off Netflix as of the recording, as of our recording date here. You can find it on Hulu and HBO now. On Hulu, however, this is something interesting. Remember way back in episode 1 when we were talking about the intro song and how great it was to hear Paula Cole sing "I Don't Want to Wait"?
Yeah.
On Hulu, during that time, we had mentioned how there is an alternative theme song that was used at certain points in Dawson's Creek's history. It is what you will find on Hulu if you
What?
go and
What?
watch the episode.
Oh.
So
That's so funny.
I watched it with Hulu, and let me just say, that theme song sucks nuts, and it does not fit the vibe of the intro credit whatsoever. It is. I actually capped it. I don't have the ability to play it right now because my sound pads are full. I will play it later for all of us to hear, and I'll drop it in when I'm editing the clip right now so we can all hear it.
Heart is in my hands, my head is in the clouds, my feet have left the ground, my life is turning.
It just doesn't match the way they shot the intro credits. So it's an interesting note if you're
That's so
watching on
weird.
Hulu and
It's
you're like,
odd.
why is this the song? Well, that's why.
why would they do that?
Hulu must not have got
They must
to
not have
play
gotten.
Paula Cole, I guess. I don't know.
guess.
Well, no, I thought we talked about this.
Well, we did, but they brought it. I think that song you're talking about was on all of the platforms
For a
and
while,
then
yeah.
for a while, and then it was replaced by the original one again.
I just don't know why Hulu
so
hasn't.
I don't know why Hulu
Yeah.
hasn't done that.
Interesting. Okay, so going back to the Bessie, Bodie, Joey house, the only other thing I thought was funny was Bessie being so sassy with Joey about like how she
Yeah.
could move out. She's
Yeah.
like,
Uh-huh.
okay, weirdo.
So I agree, and this is, I think, this is where I'm going to enter my first piece of evidence here about the vampire
yes.
plot. So we've talked about, the fact that vampires run Cape Side and that there's all sorts of paranormal and supernatural entities, that Gramps Ryan is a vampire hunter,
Yes.
and that potentially Grams is affiliated with this. So I'm just going to play this little audio clip and then we'll talk about it afterwards really quick. Here we go.
This cannot last another week. It's inhumane. I don't sleep anymore. My legs are fat. My back is killing me. I feel like retching 23 hours a day. Did you know the average gestation period for the fruit bat is 2 months? 2 months. That's fair. That's reasonable. Why can't I give birth to a fruit bat?
Because we're about 80% sure you're human.
Oh my God.
All right.
That's some serious evidence.
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Bessie